holding their government accountable, regardless if they're red, blue, or whatever color they are. And we're actually talking about the issues that should be discussed with politics today. Welcome back to the Meta Perspective. I'm really excited about this show. We're doing 4 topics, 4 segments. Okay, so it's a little different than what we've done before. I want to welcome back Anthony Feor. I want to welcome Nick Crozier, and I want to welcome back Shawn DeLaat. Welcome back, guys.
Thank you.
So we're going to let's start talking about government policy around housing. Okay, specifically the Greenbelt Plan. So, Shawn.
Yes.
Talk to me about the Greenbelt Plan and specifically around public policy with regards to housing. Can our government get it right?
That is the magic question. And so far, they have got it absolutely wrong. As far as it goes with the Greenbelt, I think there's still lots of opportunity where there's lots of lands that they do not need to dip into the Greenbelt.
Right.
As well, we do know there was a huge debacle, though, with our provincial government and the releasing of some lands. But again, don't feel that was completely necessary. If we talk about Niagara, we have ample amounts of land that is not being built on.
Okay.
Buildable land that's not being built on. And there's a whole bunch of other government factors that's why that's not happening.
So why wouldn't the government be addressing this specifically? Do you know? Like, what's your thought on that? What's your opinion, Anthony?
So I think the whole part of the Greenbelt Plan was to give a large amount of land to a select few developers. That's why they're in trouble. It's the best example of pay for play, bait and switch. There's a special prosecutor now. I'm excited to see how it unfolds. But to Shawn's point, there's tons of land everywhere else that's not protected that needs to be built on. I love the concept of intensification. Municipalities need to get on board with building housing and not sprawling higher. And I'm not talking like Aura in downtown Toronto. There's medium density, which is a big factor. Boutique, walk-ups, they used to be very popular. We need to get back into actually building housing, and building it faster means more units. And more units, building higher, I think is the best way to go.
So kind of redefining the meaning of housing really is a way to go. Nick, what do you think?
Yeah, I think a big thing is, it's the government at the end of the day. There's always an ulterior motive. So the way I look at it is like, if you really want to encourage developers, talk about the taxes, talk about the levies, talk about the building problems. Why does it take me 8 months to get a permit to knock down a house? What if I want to build, like we were talking in Toronto, laneway homes, building 4 or 5 duplex. It is harder to build a laneway home. It takes much more time, more permitting, more costs, more taxes than to even just put an extension on.
Right. So let me ask you this then. It sounds like you went into the whole nepotism thing. So does nepotism exist in government policy right now as it stands?
Since fruition. That's how our country was founded. How do you think we built the railway? Like, our country was founded on bribery. Yeah. But so there's a lot of nepotism to it, but there's a lot of NIMBYism to it. And I went and attended a fantastic debate about this last night, where I don't think we're seeing the benefits of what it means to intensify. But the federal government just got rid of GST on rentals. I think well, it already has. Look at what Brampton just announced, 20,000 units is great. Getting rid of development charges is bad for municipalities. So where the provincial government needs to play a part in this, the provincial government needs to come in and say, we'll get rid of the development charges, but we're going to help municipalities build the infrastructure. It does help developers. And I think that there's a lot of good faith people out there that want to build housing, but interest rates are a problem. And yes, I agree. There's development charges and there's levies that are huge problems. So there's going to have to be cooperation on all 3 levels of government to get it done.
100%.
I've got a stat for you guys. Okay, so by 2030, we're said to currently have a shortage of 3.5 million units.
I heard 4 million.
Oh, 4 million, 3.5. It's huge. Regardless,
it's
huge.
a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. So like Nick,
Well, I think, even on top of that, it's like you're coming through. How can we house so many people? But it also comes from the center of immigration's great, but at the same time, we miscalculated by 1 million people this year. How many times are we going to miscalculate it? So you're also
there's no miscalculation.
Well,
they're just letting more people
exactly.
in. Like they're.
Well, I think so. It was interesting when we were it was because of student visas. I think everyone's seen about 900,000 are students that came into the country last year. But what happens with the Census Canada is they're not tracking it. They think that after 30 days, when they're done as a student, they leave.
Yes.
But that's not true. Now they apply for PR. Now they stay in the country. So all of that amount of students that are in the country now are not counted for. Well, they need places to live. They need things to go. They're coming out of school. Well, you want affordable housing. If they're not coming out making, I mean, in Toronto, what? I think they said the average household needs to make 140K to live now. They're not coming out of school making 140K. So where are they going to go live?
Yeah, so let's...
Tenants.
Yeah.
It's the bottom line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tenants.
So if you were in government, let's say...
Oh boy.
Oh, yes. If you were in government...
How did you know? No.
Tell me, what would you do? What would be a part of your housing plan? For
This would
government?
be a post-World War II building frenzy. Any way we can possibly build it is build it. And removing GST and PST, what we're leaving out is what's happening with land transfer tax. Does anyone know where that money actually goes? You can't find out where it actually goes. I would make land, so first of all, mine would be focused on actually getting people into houses. So getting rid of land transfer tax entirely for first-time home buyers, I don't think is a bad idea. There's going to be loopholes with that. We have to have legislation on how we fight the loopholes. But this has to be a post-World War II building frenzy. And it has to be, I don't care how it gets done, it's got to get done. There's a lot of red tape, there's environmental impact you got to think about, but this is all after the fact. I'm talking taxes, I'm talking levies. We have to make it affordable for developers. There's a lot of good faith builders out there, and that's where the partnerships need to be. Is how to make it good for everybody, but that would be mine. It's just build the damn housing.
So, okay, build housing. Would you close the borders?
Would I close the borders?
In a sense, not borders, sorry. Would you close immigration? Would you
Close-
tighten it up?
I would tighten it up. I would start to be far more selective in the people that are coming, because at the end of the day, we need trades to build all these properties. We're a
the
shortage
huge right now,
of
the
work.
shortage, yeah.
There's a shortage of work. We need people who will do the jobs to build these places. And again, we're talking Canada, but this is a global issue. Every single country in the world is in the same thing. Shortage of units, not a workforce to build them, same bull crap as far as the rules and regulations. They just can't get things done. So I think we need to be more selective of the people we let in the country.
Okay.
And I agree with with the other guys here, is the fact that the governments need to work together, all three levels, and the municipalities, first off, need to stop being assholes and start letting people, it's a nightmare. You want to build a garage on your property. It's taking a year. It's got to stop. Just stamp it and let them go. It's time to go.
Sounds like, though, if you know someone on the inside, you might be able to get that pushed through a little quicker.
But it's not even about knowing someone on the inside. Everyone should have this.
have to. You
Right,
shouldn't say,
agreed,
if I
but
have
this is
an
kind of
extra
back to what
backyard
we were
area,
talking
And I
about.
gotta be
throw in
honest
a
though,
lane
that knowing
light.
someone on the inside,
still does- it still
it's
gets you 4 or 6 months,
It
like,
still is
it's
not
still-
helping. It doesn't make it different. Back in the day, sure, it was magic. I go in for my permit, you're coming out the next day with the permit, because the person you know. It's not like that still.
One last question on this specific topic. Okay, so obviously we have housing shortage. We have perhaps a plan, way to expand. How do we ensure that we don't have or eliminate nepotism and policy and everything? If you're gonna go post-World War II on building, how do you ensure that all of these people don't get their hands in the pot early and that it's done the right way?
That's impossible. Though.
Yeah.
That's impossible, because there's going to be deals made everywhere. And some municipalities are different than others. Not every municipality is Toronto, not every municipality is St. Catharines. But what you do is you find the best approach. So the best approach for downtown Toronto, there shouldn't be anything that's less than probably 5 units on every block. That's my opinion. Downtown St. Catharines might be different than that. I'm not suggesting we go and build the World Trade Center in downtown St. Catharines and have it all be housing units. That's not going to work. The infrastructure can't handle it, and it's not part of the sheer design. But a place like downtown Toronto, it should not even be negotiable. You're building towers. You're building it. That has to be it. And you need a government with I don't even want to say it. Are you allowed to swear on the show? You need a government with the balls to go in there and say, build high density.
Okay, let's talk rent control. Most people may not know that rent control only applies to units first occupied by anyone, not just the current renter, before November 15th of 2018. That's the magic date. For any units that came to market after that, there is no limit to how much rent can be raised annually. Do you agree with this policy?
Yes. Yeah.
Tell us why.
I would agree with it. I think the whole rent control, yes, you need a limit. Don't get me wrong. But it's all still relative. Yes, if you had it in 2019 and you're getting a great rate, right? You have to keep in mind. And the problem, I think, the big thing is, yes, we want to help the renters. We want to make it affordable. But you have to remember, there's still people that own these properties. Their taxes are still going up. Their rates are still going up. They're more. So even when that renter doesn't pay anymore, guess who's supposed to pay the property taxes? The utility bills, right? So I think within reason, yes, I think you need it in general. And I think those kind of initiatives will encourage more investors to say, okay, yeah, you know what? Let's renovate my basement apartment now because I can change the rent from $1,000 and they're living in a slum and I can turn it into a 2-bedroom and maybe 2 students or 2 someone can go in there, right? Like there has to be incentives because when you hear the horror stories, which you hear more of in the media and the news outlets, it's like as an investor who says, I want to invest in a house or I want to go build and knock this down and build a triplex. What is my initiative to do that if I can't control my rents or I can't increase or I can't do anything with it, right? Like it's discouraging. And there's other provinces that have no rent control. And what you're starting to see are the investors are going to the Calgarys, the East Coast, and that's what they're doing. They're going where it's just a money thing at the end of the day. It's just, this is what it costs me. This is what I need.
Anthony, what do you think? Do you agree with the policy of removing rent control?
No, I don't, because I've seen people's cost of living go up by like 3 times. So I understand where you're coming from, and yes, I work in the business, but you have to pick a side, I think, and there's 2 sides to this for me. So let's talk about tenants themselves and let's talk about the consumer. So friends of mine who rent in downtown cities, who I think, yes, they want to rent a nice place, they want in-suite laundry, they don't want to live in an archaic apartment building that hasn't had a renovation since Brian Mulrooney's been in charge. So they've seen their cost of living go up 3 times now because of this policy. Initially, it was put in place because they wanted to build more units. So let's talk about the units. 90,000 applications, 30,000 unit approvals, 0 shovels in the ground. So we've essentially raised people's cost of living, okay, and nothing's getting built. However, there have been people that have built housing in good faith, the developers who built it around this policy. There needs to be a conversation at the table, there needs to be dialogue, and there needs to be municipal, provincial, and federal governments coming together. Not the federal government, I think this is out of their jurisdiction. The province and the municipalities have to come together and come up with a plan. But I think that labeling every developer as greedy is wrong, and I also think that having people's cost of living go up the way it did is wrong too. There has to be a balance, but the conversation is going to start at the table, because I do firmly believe that vilifying developers is not good, and we have to have the conversation with them and the people who build housing in good faith.
What about the average investor who buys a unit and all of a sudden his mortgage comes up for maturity and now all of a sudden his mortgage rate goes up by 60%? Should they not be able to...
From 2018 to now, though.
Right. So should they not pass that on to the renter, or no?
Well, I also think that there's also going to be a calamity when it comes to investing. There's going to be times where shit is just going to be bad. Guys, I used to be an RSP guy. It wasn't always $5,000. There's times where it went to $3,800. There was times where it went to $5,200. This is part of investing. So I get it, but I think 2018 now, looking at the policy, maybe that's a little too far gone, because I don't think people who bought in 2018 are suffering as much as people who bought in 2021 or 2022. If you want to go from the peak, I'm down to reevaluate stuff. I'm down to work with people, but I'm not down to just say, get rid of it, carte blanche. I think that that's bad.
I think if you're looking for a compromise, I would say for every 2-3 years, it increases. So if it's 2021, so you're bringing it up instead of leaving it
so
back.
you're for changing the date.
If you want to accommodate, and I agree, cost of living is going up and everything.
But anybody who is on the side of making progress on this file is having that dialogue with people. 100%. Not just saying, you're greedy, you're a bastard. It's, let's talk about where we need to make
how we can help. Because,
exactly.
Again, it goes back to the same, the archaic condos. Well, what is the incentive for the developer to fix anything in that building if he cannot change the rents?
No, right? Thank you.
I'm in the middle.
Yeah, I'd like to hear
I'm in
from
the middle
you.
on this, in the sense that I am an investor, I am a landlord, and yes, interest rates have gone up. I'm not covering my mortgage, and I'm exponentially. But I also do care about the Canadian people, and being in this industry, I do see future problems where affordability is huge. So I think I like the reevaluation of year to year, or government saying, hey, like, you register as a landlord saying, I'm willing to work with you and offer low rents, but you got to take care of me and give me grants or extra write-offs or something. Like, there's lots of things that can be looked at and worked upon. I mean, because it's going to get bad out there. We don't have enough units. It's going to get bad for people for renting.
I think a lot of it too, coming from that, because I'm a landlord as well, and I think the biggest thing for me is it's the fear of non-payment. And it's not the fear of non-payment in the sense it's going to happen, things go wrong. It's the fact that if someone just wants to come into my house and not pay me, I can't get them out for 6 to 8 months, a year.
Yeah. So that's
where's
kind of
the
like
incentive?
a checks and balance here
it is.
as well.
It's a middle ground.
It's a middle ground.
Like, I'm not saying be greedy and just raise the rents. Like, it's all relative.
Because if you were to go to your tenant and say $1,000 more, they can just say, well, screw
they'll just
you,
say,
but I'm not,
"Screw
just,
you,"
I'm not going to pay you.
And it's still relative to the sense where if you move the dialogue from 2018 to now 2020 or to 2021, well, then it does change it a little bit because from 2021, the rent also skyrocketed. So you're like, okay, let's move the bar. Let's keep moving it year over year so it's still relative because you're right. In 2018, you could rent a one-bedroom down there for about, what, $1,600 in Toronto. Now you're looking for a one-bedroom 27, 28.
Welcome back. Okay, so now we're going to talk stress test.
Yep.
Mortgage stress test. Most people know by now that in order to qualify for a mortgage with a federally regulated bank, you have to actually qualify for the contract rate plus 2%. So currently, right now, that's qualifying clients at 8.5%. Okay? Shawn, do you agree with this policy as it stands today?
I do. First off, I was a little, when it first came out, selfishly, it screwed the market, and I was pissed about it. But now, hindsight, looking all back, wasn't a bad thing. It actually protected a lot of people and a lot of, like, for the future predicaments where people are going to potentially refi and stuff like that. There is some protection for some of those. I know still a lot are in jeopardy, but there is still some protection, and I think it wasn't the worst thing at all.
Nick, what about you?
No, I'm totally on board. Like, I think it was, in hindsight, look at it now, right? Like, and that's, I think, a big misconception with the whole market where everyone thinks it's going to crash and all this crazy talk you always hear. It's like, guys, everyone who bought actually was ready for a 5.5%, 5.2% back in 2017 there. So they're ready. Even when they come for their mortgage renewals from 2% to 5, 5.5, 6, they were already good. Yeah, some people will be a little hurting if you overextended and whatnot, but you can lengthen the amortization, go back to 30, do this. Like, there's so many things. I think it was great. It was smart. It sucked, obviously, when it first happened because everyone's like, whoa, well, my rate's going to be this and this. But when you look at it now, I mean, it protected a lot of people. Like, the consumer was protected.
So as it stands today, we're qualifying people at 8.5%. Should we change it, Anthony, or should we leave it as is?
I think now that we're seeing interest rates stabilize, we all got the good news a half hour ago, right? Yeah, we're staying the same. Woohoo! I think anything can always be reevaluated, and I think that now that we're at a time where we know interest rates are going to be on the decline or they're going to be stabilized, I think if we want to focus the objective of getting first-time home buyers into their first home or getting people back into the market, this is where you can reevaluate the numbers. And mine was 8.79%, not 8.5. So maybe I need to switch banks.
Well, I think to that point, I think where you're coming on that point is perfect because right now, the average every buyer for now is taking a fixed rate. Their fixed rate's going to be between, I'm hearing 5.8 to 6.5. So yes, I think to incentivize, if you're a first-time buyer, then you should be getting qualified now at your fixed rate because you're going to take that for the next 5 years. Is it going to increase? Is it probably not? You're already at a 6%, and if it goes to 10, 11, then we're probably all in trouble.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think from that standpoint, if you're a first-time buyer, you should be allowed to be qualified on your fixed rate that you're going to have.
What's wrong with 1% instead of 2? Is it really going to make that big of a difference? If we know we're at a pivotal point now where interest rates are going to stabilize and it's going to get a little bit more calmer, okay, what is the problem? I don't see the problem with reevaluating any policy.
It should be, in my opinion, should be more dynamic. There are ways to review it and have a look at it. Now, how are you going to do it? I don't know, but currently right now we're 8.5 or 8.79 as you did. So maybe we should talk. Yeah. But basically, what do you think, Shawn? Now going forward, like, do we change it or do we leave it as is and just see where it goes?
I kind of think you leave it. I really do. Because I'm going to be honest too. My concern is no matter what, we have created this paradox in our real estate industry that yes, we're dealing with high interest rates, but we have so much demand percolating. We talk about shortage of units. And if you lower that, you're going to just push the market out so crazy. So again, I think that's partly why they also, for affordability factor, but they also did it to curb the market and curb demand from certain buyers because, so I think they should kind of leave it because I do see the next years where this market could ramp up super quick again and go into crazy multiple offers and stuff. And you gotta, again, there has to be some things to kind of keep it calm. Although maybe they could look at it as a case per, if co-signers are co-signing, maybe say, hey, you know what, you have a co-signer, you don't need to worry about it. Mom and dad are on it, you're okay. But if it's a young couple kind of going on their own, maybe protect them
But I heard a really crazy stat the other day. 57% of mortgages in Canada are going to come up for renewal in 2025 and 2026 combined. So if rates stay where they are today, you imagine what is going to happen to these clients who are, by the way, receiving pre-approval letters for unsecured debt every day in the mail, taking it, racking them up, and then now not going to be able to put it onto the mortgage.
Keep in mind with that too, you're talking most of those people 25, 26, 2020 buyers, 2021 buyers. So you also got to remember, if they had that low rate, they were paying down a good chunk of principal, right? So I think, again, that stress test that comes back at that 5.2s, 5.5s, like they're still able to. Are they going to be happy that they have to probably have the same mortgage payment, if not a little bit more, or, an extra, 20-30% of their mortgage? No. But I don't know. I don't think it's not going to hurt I think the housing market the way people think it will.
I wish people had these conversations more, because I don't think that the message is getting across. First of all, the feds don't get enough applause for this policy, which was fantastic monetary policy. Reevaluating it every year is not a bad idea either. You're there, you're working,
Do something. That's why you're there. Why can't we reevaluate it every year? The market goes up. Hey, we got to bring the stress test back a little bit because you're going to be buying at this price.
Yeah.
The interest rates may change. This is why people get paid $200,000 a year to review the policy. But what he's saying always makes me laugh with my generation, because our parents never talked to us about the ups and downs of real estate. And we all thought it was like that Homer Simpson thing where he buys the stock, he thinks he's going to be rich, rich, rich. My parents lived like paycheck to paycheck most of the 80s. Like most people did when they bought a house. No one talked to their kids about that. Yep. So this is just part of home ownership. There's good 5 years and there's bad 5 years. We're going to be in a bad 5 years for a little bit, but the payoff in 30 years, it should be the ultimate goal. That's the savings account, is that house, and that's what you should be working towards.
Okay, let's talk, again, housing. Let's talk about first-time homebuyer incentives. The government, in the past, let's say 5 to 10 years, have created first-time homebuyer incentives. Are they working, and do they work? So, Nick, start us off.
No, it's a joke. It's literally a joke. They just put these things I call it a political play for your votes. That's all it is. I mean, if you look at the actual breakdown, the incentive program they have, if you live in any major city, Vancouver, GTA, even really anything in Ontario for the most part, you can't buy anything. They're telling you that, you need 120K income max. So if you make more than that, you can't. Well, what does that qualify you for a mortgage? Maybe $350, $400. And then you're still gonna need the money to put down. So now you're talking You're still gonna have to come up with at least 5%. They're gonna match you. And where they catch you is their hands in the pocket. Because when your property goes up, guess what? They're not taking just the 20K they gave you. No, they want 5% of your new sale price. So all the money you put into the home, all the renos over 10, 15 years, they're taking your equity with them.
This is a shared equity program you're talking about. Do you agree, Anthony, with Nick?
You said vote buying. It worked. They won the election.
So, I guess it worked. But at the end of the day, so my experience is a little different, because I'm with somebody who just opened up the first-time home buyer savings account. They're shoving money, bang, 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 bang. However, we're a two-income household, so we can probably afford to do this. I get where you're coming from with the hands in the pockets. Is it bad policy or is it good business by the government? Government's a business. We all know that. So, are they going to work? Are a lot of people going to buy into it? Probably not. And I think that there's a lot of negativity around it from the standpoint of, I don't want the government involved in my business, which I can respect somebody's opinion for that. I have a different experience with it. I'm with somebody who has opened up a first-time home buyer savings account. They want to reap the benefits of it. I said, that's fine. It's not my money. It's yours. You do whatever you want. We didn't have that stuff back when I started.
Right.
We didn't. We had the RSP thing where you could take out $25,000. I think now it's $35,000. Who's got $35,000 and they're under the age of 30? Nobody. Right. So they have made
you got to pay it back over 15 years.
Yeah, but you don't really have to pay it back over 15 years. They'll just adjust it on your income tax. I found that out 2 years ago. So here I was, bang, 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 and I'm like, oh, I don't have to put it back.
Yes. So quick stat on that: only half of Canadians actually repay on the first-time home buyer.
That's
so the rest add it to their income. The rest actually pay income tax on it, rendering it really inefficient at the end of the day, right? Yeah. So on that first-time home buyer incentive program, what I found really interesting is that up until now, we're coming around the 5-year mark of this program, right? It's going to end in 2023, 24. It's been extended to 25. Okay. You know how many units have actually been?
I could probably go off of a very low number, if any. If any.
Okay, I'll tell you. Essentially what it was is it's 20,000 units produced for 100,000 new homes was the goal. So it's essentially it was a 20% success rate.
Okay.
Okay, and in Ontario, your average purchase price was $360,000. So how many
better than the rent control
how many
stats.
first-time buyers are buying a house for $360,000?
Yeah, none. And as far as the incentives go, what incentives?
Yeah,
It's
like,
all
yeah,
smoke
like,
and
what's the-
mirrors.
yeah.
It's all fodder.
Where's the incentive,
It's all
right?
bullshit. And I mean, honestly, I've even talked about this first-time homebuyer tax-free savings account, whatever.
Yeah.
You have a tax-free savings
Yeah, you already have.
account.
What do you need that one
It's
for?
all it is another account where you can put a little extra more money in there, where the government has control of your funds. And secondly, getting the government involved in your home ownership. Oh boy. Fuck it, absolutely not. The government ain't putting their hands in my pockets, man. Like, that is one way of them saying, yeah, you know what, we're gonna take it. So their incentives.
Even still, what's the incentive going to do for him if I can't afford the monthly payment?
Yeah.
Right? Like if you actually think about what's the first time? It's like $8,000, I think, is from the tax.
So it's an $8,000 ceiling, okay,
Yeah.
up to $40,000 you can borrow. Like right now, $8,000. It's kind of dangling a carrot, don't you
Well, I
find?
mean, what's the incentive?
Kinda?
And you think about it.
What
How
do you
many
do with $8,000?
Save. Prices are going to go up. They're not going to be able to afford a house
it's-
anyways. It's a complete.
Well, you also have to think of it, right?
it's
Think
vote
of
buying.
cost of living, right? If you want to live in the GTA, let's call it, they're saying anywhere from, I'm not even going to use a real average. Let's say you make $100,000 a year. After taxes and everything, when you add that in there, what are you netting? Maybe 70, 65. Now you got to pay your rent, food, groceries, car, bills. How much money do I have left over to put into this $8,000 savings account? What am I going to do? 8,000 over 5 years? What's that, 40 grand? Great. What am I buying now? Nothing.
So like I said, my experience is different because we want, like, what was I supposed to say? Well, first of all, it's not my money. I can't tell somebody what to do with their money.
Right.
But that's my experience is different with it. And I like it, guys. I'm happy to be the guinea pig. If you want to do a reevaluation of this when we buy our place, I'm happy to come on the show again. We can talk about whose hands are in whose pockets. The government's hands are always in your pocket. It's called property tax, called income tax. It's Jesus Murphy. They're there all the time. It's like, you know what I mean? Yeah. So whether the incentives work, I'm probably more on the side of Sean's, where are people going to be able to, and Nick's is, are people going to be able to afford to buy into this? Probably not. They're living in the GTA. The average rent is $30,000 a year. That used to be an income for people in this country. Now it's your cost of living per year just to rent a house.
So, okay, so let me put one of you guys on the spot. Actually, Sean, I'll put you on the spot. If you were in charge, what incentive would you offer for first-time home buyers?
That's a very good question, man. If anything, it's really hard to do it. I mean, is there a way to kind of gift a down payment or something? I mean, that's the only really true way you can really truly give them the free money.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting you say that, because I was actually thinking about this one the other day, funny enough, because if you actually break it down, okay, if you want to help us out, top us to 5, top us to 10, great. If you want to do that, then gift it, like you're saying, gift that 5, 10 over that period of time, then there isn't a payback. You're already paying property taxes, that's your payback. If you truly want first-time buyers to get into it, if you're a real first-time buyer, no land transfer tax. You're a real first-time buyer, that extra 5% top-up is a gifted loan, and you have to stay in the house for 10 years, 15 years, otherwise you pay it back. Something that will incentivize you to at least stay in the home you genuinely wanted, funding and housing. Now, you're talking about just the cities and getting outside the city and this and that. Will encourage people that live in the city to move outside the city. A lot of people work from home nowadays. I don't know what the stat is, but a lot have gone from home.
Well,
we'll start encouraging the
Absolutely. Transit has to improve for that too.
100%.
And prime example here in Niagara, you got the GO train, which is just dismal. Yeah. And it will become a thing, hands down, but they need to make it more convenient times, because driving from Niagara on the QEW, as soon as you get it's a disaster. It's getting worse.
Well, look at it this way. If you want all the people from Toronto, just look at Eglinton. They built Dubai as faster than they built Eglinton right now. Like, it's crazy. The line,
So,
it's insane.
Also, you may be able to help housing first-time home buyers without actually spending money doing it. One idea came about was, for first-time home buyers up to a certain age, let's say, maybe offer them a 40-year amortization, because they're younger. They have a longer time period to pay off their mortgage.
40, 50.
Right?
Yeah.
So
If they
some
use that
countries have done
program,
that. What do you think about that, Anthony?
Yeah.
I'm all for it. If I could get a 40-year mortgage rate, sign me the up.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care if it gets paid off.
I think even
I
with
care
these high-
about.
That's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
actually.
I think even with these
because-
high interest rates, that's the
because
best
what
way. Extend the amortizations. And if you're a first-time buyer, 40 years your minimum.
Right.
If you're a genuine first-time buyer and you don't no cosign, you're trying to do it on your
Don't
own.
charge them more from a rate perspective?
Yeah.
Because that's
well,
what's
get rid of the
happening,
CMHC insurance. Get rid of that fee that you're going to charge the first-time buyer, because that's adding to their mortgage. That's an extra 10, 15K. But when you break down your principal, that first year you just paid was the insurance premium.
I don't care if the mortgage doesn't get paid off. That is such a stupid, antiquated way of thinking. Because in 30 years, a $200,000 mortgage is going to be peanuts.
Nona would not be happy with you saying
But
that.
that's we're new school thinking.
Yeah.
Our parents were pay the house, pay.
No debt, no debt.
But wait, so we're this is called the meta perspective. So we're new school thinking. This is the new school way of doing it. You got a $200,000 mortgage.
It's education.
You got a $200,000 mortgage on a $1.5 million property. I don't care about a $200,000 mortgage because I got $1.3 million in equity.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the way you look at things, right? From an education, this goes back to education. Just like you said,
Right, we're gonna do a whole show on
Yeah,
education,
we're out
because
to
that's-
40, but it's just teaching people how to be financial literate because
just hope-
you're not going to be in this home for the next 40 years anyway.